This is CXO Secrets, the podcast that takes you inside the mind of business leaders and reveals the strategies behind their success. Coming up in today's show,
the board is there to govern the organisation. They want to know the truth. They don't want to be smokescreened. They don't want to be told it's all happy path, because these are seasoned professionals and they know straight away that that's not the case. So one of my major facets is I tell it how it is. I don't try to gloss it up. I'm very honest with what I'm finding and where I'm up to.
the CXO Secrets podcast is powered by EDS, going beyond connections. Find out about upcoming C-level events, experiences and insights at edsxevents.com. Mat Mallett, CDIO, Chief Digital and Information Officer at the CII, the Chartered Insurance Institute, based in London, England. There's a lot of letters in there, Matt. So tell us about the CII, where you're working at the moment, and what your responsibilities as CDIO are there.
Good afternoon. So the Royal Chartered Insurance Institute is a membership body. We are one of two membership bodies. We have a junior membership body called the Personal Finance Society. We also provide education and qualifications for both insurance and finance industry on personal finance. So we're quite a complex beast as membership bodies go. We have a total membership of over 120,000 and continue to grow. And
Wow.
We are an international recognized brand. We are very strong in Asia Pac, for instance. So we are obviously here to support our members and to provide great thought leadership and guidance on best practices. My role covers everything to do with digital data and technology and security, and also call center, believe it or not,
Wow.
because of my call center background. So I've got quite a diverse group of people working for me across the CII.
Now, at the point at which we're chatting now, you've been there for shortly coming on to around about 2 years or so now. Was there a standalone CDIO role prior to you joining, or is this a seat at the table that you've established and made your own since you've been there?
There wasn't a role before I joined. The board and the CEO recognised they had some big challenges and that it was all around digital and tech, and they needed someone that could articulate what those challenges were, but also drive through a strategic agenda to address those, not just for the board, but for our members. There is a lot of expectation of the institute, and I think it's fair to say we had a lot of frustrated members. We still do. The path is not one that's instantaneous. There is a lot for us to do and a lot for me to still address. But we have made, I believe, fantastic progress in those 2 years. And I'm really, I wouldn't say proud's not the word I'm thinking of, but I am genuinely impressed with how the whole one CII has come together, and all teams have come together. We've broken those silos down. We're continuing to break down the silos, and we're all joining up together to provide a better membership experience.
You mentioned there some of the change that's been happening at the CII from a technical point of view, as well as from a leadership point of view. You joined the CII in the midst of a transformation project, just as the rollout of this new relationship management system for members was gathering momentum. With 120,000 members, I can imagine that is no small project. So how was it coming into a transformation project when I'm guessing it was already at quite an advanced stage? There would have been a lot of work to get to the point that you were at when you joined, or have you been able to still steer things in the time that you were there to the point at which that transformation really started to mature?
I was well briefed before I joined, so I knew that this was a second phase of transformation. There was great concern from the CEO and the board regarding the success that this was going to have and the impact on our members. So I was under no illusion that there was a lot of work to do to turn this around and get this delivered as seamlessly and as positively for our members as possible. So very quickly, within 60 days, I had to stand in front of the board and say, I'm sorry, I'm going to delay. I am not comfortable with where we're up
Oh,
to. Yes, sharp
oh
intake of
wow.
breath. I think that
Yes.
was, as much as they knew I was doing the right thing, there had been a massive investment on behalf of our members. And the last thing any board wants to hear is,
Mm.
I'm not happy, it's not ready to go. But that was my role. That's what I have
Yeah.
to stand there and take. And positively, they supported me, and we turned it around, and we delivered March. Wow, it feels so long ago. March 23. We
Okay.
had a slight blip, as you do with such a massive program, but
Yeah.
after 5 days of transformation, we came up, and apart from one error, everything else has worked seamlessly. And as part of that transformation, it's about, for me, is ensuring that any big transformation, the delivery team stays on board and helps work with the day-to-day operational teams.
Yeah.
And that was crucial for this delivery. There was a lot that, because of the size and complexity of it, and the complexity of our client base, we very quickly found out where there was gaps, and need to obviously address those issues so that we didn't impact our members.
Now, when things did go wrong, and you alluded to it there, you were one of the names, your quotes, you were being hauled out in front of the media as well,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
apologize for that after having only been in the role for still a very short period of time. In terms of incident response, we talk about this in cybersecurity in the CISO space a lot about planning. Failing to plan is planning to fail, and it's so important to have a well rehearsed, well considered incident response plan. How's incident response planning where you are? Were you following a kind of run book for, look, we're going through a big transformation project on the risk register? There are some things that can go wrong. And if that happens, then these are the things that we need to be doing.
I think in this instance, there was a gap.
Mm.
As much as I'd covered off most facets, this one was left field. What I can say is the communications team and my teams quickly adapted, because obviously we had enough instant processes that I made them go through. Everyone, I said to my teams, everyone likes the happy path. I want the worst paths, because if we mitigate and plan for those, then anything else is quite simple. Um, so we did turn that around very quickly. We also understood what the issue was very quickly, because of obviously all the pre-go live instant planning and responses that we do. I've taken this as a real lessons learned for the teams. Yes, it was my name in the press. Ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, the buck stops with me. I'm not going to put one of my individuals in front of this. That comes with my title. It comes with my role. They're only human. They're going to make mistakes. Mistake was made in this instance, so the lessons learned are, let's not make it again. I'm a strong believer in, you move forward and you continue to make sure that you mitigate against all possible scenarios, and where possible, you plan for the worst.
Those known unknowns, they're always
Donald's
lurking there
Rumsfeld. Yep,
somewhere,
absolutely.
quite. um, something you mentioned there as well, within a very short period of time of you having joined the CII, you were stood in front of the board saying, look, I think we're going to need to press pause for the good of the project. What's your secret, if you have one, to being able to hit the ground running and have an immediate impact in the roles that you have? And we'll come on to your background and your journey to being at the CII in a moment, I think. But when you are stepping into a fresh seat, as you say, with a CDIO there at the CII, how can you make sure that you are able to have that immediate impact? And it's not a 6 months getting your feet under the table and getting your feet in the slippers, as it were, that you can deliver value to the board and to the organization as quickly as possible.
I think a lot of my roles have been involved in turnaround and recovery. So I think that's provided me with kind of the experience over the years to build that confidence, that I kind of flip it on its head. The board is there to govern the organization. They want to know the truth. They don't want to be smokescreened. They don't want to be told it's all happy path, because these are seasoned professionals and they know straight away that that's not the case. So one of my major facets is I tell it how it is. I don't try to gloss it up. I'm very honest with what I'm finding and where I'm up to. If I don't have an answer, I will give them an indication of when I'm going to have an answer, if I believe I will have an answer, or if it's something that I still need to investigate further. I think it's very much ensuring the board is completely aware and completely briefed on the reality of the situation. I don't, when I have people come in front of me when I in advisory roles or lead roles, I'm not comfortable when people come up to me and say, "Oh, it's all fine. Yeah, it's all right. We've had a little blip, but it'll be fine." It immediately puts me on razor's edge. I prefer people be upfront and tell me exactly what's going on.
It's all about trust, and
Yes.
transparency is what builds that
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from my perspective, I have what I call like a run book or a Bible, and I have a 30, 60, and 90-day approach. And by 90 days, I should be in a position where I can present back not only how the business operates, but my understanding of the business, to make sure that not only for the execs, but for the board, that I understand how the business operates. And if I'm missing something or there's a gap, it's an ideal opportunity to kind of recheck and rebalance and say, this is my perception of your business. Is this correct? Is this wrong? Because sometimes I might miss areas, and it's good for the board, especially board members that have been around for some time. They really do understand the business. So they would say, well, what about this area? And I can go, I honestly didn't know about that area. I will go and investigate. So for me, it's very much keeping the tempo of them being kept briefed on what I'm finding, what I'm doing to address it, what the biggest risks are, what the opportunities are, where I see our threats. And I just continue along that process as we move forward.
I think that's fascinating, having your own framework, your own run book there with that 30, 60, 90-day plan. And these are the things, almost not a tick sheet, of course, but some boxes that you need to try and understand. And if you then reflect that back to your stakeholders, then there's that transparency straight away. Well, what do you mean we've got a wing in the Middle East? I didn't know we had a wing in the Middle East, a whole organization out there. Gosh, I really like that as a piece of advice. You've worked in a variety of roles across everything from healthcare and retail to oil and gas, fraud and law enforcement. And immediately prior to the CII, you were at the UK Space Agency,
Yes. Yeah.
also as a CDIO. You're clearly not afraid, Matt, of bridging different sectors, different industries in your work. But is there a common thread for you between these diverse roles that you've engaged in?
There's two, and I think the key one for me is it's all about people. It's all about people. It doesn't matter what sector we're in, the ways of working, ultimately, the organizations I've worked for has been either recovery turnaround or initiation. So from one end of the spectrum to the other, with UK Space Agency, I was the first CDIO. It was an amazing time to join. I can openly, honestly say I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but I
Me
actually got to
too.
see the size of the astronauts and realised there was no way I could eat 4 astronauts and still, they are certainly carry a lot less weight than me. So, it's not a role that I was ever going to be able to do, but this was as close as I could get to obviously working with astronauts and meeting Tim Peake, our own astronaut. So that for me was a great opportunity, but it was also a time of post-Brexit where we really needed to emphasize UK space economy. We've been working in the shadows since 1959, and it was quite mind-blowing when I first started to research it, how much we've done. We built the Mars rover arm, but we don't go and shout about it. And the amount of work that goes on in the UK space is just absolutely amazing. We work very closely with European Space Agency, but also NASA, and also now with Australia and India, who are the other big contenders in the space industry. It's really fascinating, and I did quite a few talks when I was at the Space Agency about satellites and satellite debris, for instance, which was quite interesting. Yes, sorry, I do
Well,
love
no,
the space. I do love
well, yeah.
space.
And what an amazing opportunity, say, given all of the different places that you've worked, and not that they weren't, I'm sure, engaging and exciting as well, but to have an opportunity to not only follow a professional path, but to follow a path of passion as
Mm,
well and turn that into your job and be able to still have your mind opened as to, wow, there's a lot going on here that people don't know about. That must have been really, really exciting. I know another area that's exciting, and we've touched on all of the different areas in which you've worked, but you continue to work as well alongside some of your other roles in some pro bono work, particularly around the health and care sector. What can you tell us about those?
Um, I think once you get to this level, if you've achieved the C-suite level, you challenge yourself to what's next. And I think for me, it was helping others. That's the main backbone of who I am and what I'm about. So for me, it's about different facets, from mentoring people who have ambitions in different roles in IT, recruiting people to come into the IT arena, through to helping small startups grow um, in a very, very fast, dynamic, changing industry. Um, but also, because of personal reasons, I've got a strong allegiance to cancer and health in particular. Um, so for me, when I met the CEO who said, "I'm looking at setting up, I've gone through cancer myself. I'm looking at setting up a new company called Cancer Central. It's going to be a startup, and we're going to focus on people affected by cancer and bringing information and services and diagnosis and symptoms all together in one roof where you can come and find it free of charge." I went, "I'm in. Let me know what you need, and I'm in." And quickly we worked together to obviously build the first iteration of the platform. Um, based on AI, because ultimately, as a new startup, especially in the healthcare field, funding is challenging. Funding is challenging. It's highly regulated. So we had to provide a service that was as financially lean as possible. So we were lucky. Before COVID hit, we were already in a virtual model. We operated virtually. We kept our operating costs to a minimum and focused on making sure we always provided services free of charge to the general public. When COVID hit, um, one of our trustees was working with NHS Scotland, who were struggling to deal with the call volumes, and they offered us, alongside the big players, I won't mention names, we all know the big names, um, and asked us whether we would be interested in supporting them. Within 48 hours, I'm presenting in front of NHS Scotland our solution, and I think the best bit of it was when we presented our solution. What we'd done was, there was over 100 websites of information that makes up NHS Scotland, supporting 110,000 care professionals and 7 million population. So trying to keep this information up to date, even on a weekly basis, was becoming a burden. We worked with them to actually produce that information, and what we did in our first demo was show them what we could produce in less than 24 hours, with the opportunity to update all of that information and consolidate all that information and keep it all up to date. The clinician highlighted that something was wrong, so obviously our system wasn't working, and immediately asked one of the team to show him which website wasn't up to date, and he was mortified it was one of their main websites.
Oh,
So,
no.
immediately we'd highlighted that they're having consistency problems, which they knew, but we just took it as part of the demo and we said we'll move on. Within the month, we were live and we supported NHS Scotland with over 1 million inquiries.
Wow.
So that's kind of one of the ones that you take with you, where you can really help and make an impact. And it was. I'm just glad that I was able to help.
And from a leadership point of view there, given the experience that many of us have working within larger organizations, the real world in normal times does not move at that pace
No.
at all. Technology doesn't move that quickly, rarely moves that quickly, and certainly decision making doesn't move that quickly. So in your role as a leader with vast experience of how corporate machines work, how do you adapt yourself? How do you change your, I guess, kind of governance mindset to moving as quickly as we all needed to change, organizations and people needed to change in those dark times of the pandemic?
I think one, because of my diverse background, it really helped. So whilst I can move very fast, I also understand the rigors of governance and regulatory. Um, so we still had to go through, and I think that's what people didn't understand. We still had to go through all the regulatory tracks. We still had to work with NCSC. We still had to work with procurement. Um, but rather than taking weeks or months to go through the hoops, NHS Scotland and NCSC were combined and said, look, we need to move fast on this. We will work with you. Here's the timeframes. Here's the times we're available. If you can make those, then obviously, and you can turn it around, which we did. So it was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of additional hours making sure the next day we're available for the next set and barrage of questions and checks that we needed to go through. And it was I'm not going to deny it was a frenetic month for the team and me. But it was also, I can't say anything else. I think it was just awesome. It was just awesome to be at the heart of addressing such a scary situation we found ourselves all in. It's the first month of the pandemic. We don't know what this is. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how long this is going to last. There was a lot of don't knows, don't knows, don't knows. But what we did know was, and what I said to the team all the time was, what we do know is our solution works and we do know we can help. Fixate on what we do know and let's just work through the don't knows as they come up. And that kind of replicated across both the teams that we're working and supporting with. And it kind of changed the mindset from a kind of, oh, well, you've got to go through this and we've got to go through that too. No, let's see it as a challenge. We will do this. We will get through this. This is greater than all of us. It's important. Let's get through it. And everyone, I can't name names, but everyone that was involved did a massive job, and it was brilliant and really superb.
They were very dark times, but
Hmm.
there were some truly startling moments as well. And it
Yeah.
sounds as though you've certainly experienced those in your quest to help people with whatever help they needed during those times.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's for me that's what is a key part of being at this level is it's your opportunity to help others. I feel very fortunate to have managed to reach this level. I'm not saying it wasn't through hard work, because it was, and it's a lot of learning from mistakes, but it's not an opportunity to just sit back on my laurels and say, well, I'm here, I'm just going to go and play golf. No, it's an opportunity to build the next generation or build my successor wherever I am, ready to take over, because I don't know what's next.
Matt, a couple of
Mm.
questions that we ask all of our guests on the show here is your secret. If you have a secret, you do have a secret. What is it though? Put your modesty to one side. Is there a key thing? I mean, we've covered lots of things, and I've got my own reflections that I will share in a moment.
Yeah.
But an experience or something that's helped you get to where you are today.
I think I think it was a lawyer that coined it, that was the one that I've used ever since. I have an indomitable spirit. And I was like, sorry? And obviously I got her to explain through a higher education what she meant. And she said, it doesn't matter what gets thrown at you. I've worked with you for over a year now, and it doesn't matter what's thrown at you. You will go away, you'll cogitate maybe for a day or two, and you'll come back with a new strategy on how we're going to address it. It doesn't matter how big the boulder is, you'll either dig under it, climb over it, walk around it, or break it. Whatever's needed, you will find a way around it, and you will bring the team with you. So I think that's the key one. Passion and transparency. I'm transparent with my team. I'm passionate about what I do and what my team does. Um, and the key one for me is the fault stays with me. If you're exploring, if you're trying something new, if we're breaking new ground, mistakes are going to happen. You're not to blame. I am, because I pushed you too far and mistakes happen.
if I can just share the 3 words that in the short time that you and I have been chatting, Matt, but they're 3 words that have really stood out of things that just kind of drive you. You mentioned the passion there. Absolutely, there's passion. There's people at the heart of all of this as well. And then purpose. People, purpose, passion. Those 3 Ps are what I'm getting in abundance. Uh, that doesn't surprise you, what I guess this feels like it's a conversation maybe you've had with yourself or other people have shared those thoughts too.
I think it's more reflection from other people. We can all big ourselves up, but I do the opposite. I'm my most critical friend. So it's
Mm,
nice when other people reflect it back, because it means at least I am articulating and showing what I'm feeling,
yeah.
which is key to me, which is people. Um,
A bit of fun that we have on this show. We do what we call a pass the question. Each of our guests gets to answer a question that's been posed by our previous episode's guest. And then you will get a chance to ask our next episode guest a question as well. It can be as serious or as not as you like. Now, our last guest in our last episode was Samir Mehta, who's the CDO at Kroll. He asked you to respond to this question.
I see three trends out there. One is obviously AI. Okay. The second is the continued use of data and so managing that data. So let's call it data management. And thirdly is digital is still out there. What does AI plus data management plus digital look like? I think that the combination of those three and whatever that answer is the next big opportunity for all of us. And so I would love to hear the opinions that of your next guest on what he or she would think about bringing those three together and what that output would look like.
Well, Matt, that's what Samir had to put to you. How do you respond to that?
Thanks, Samir. That's a nice, challenging question. Um, I think the key thing is, and it's a really good question, because all three are seriously interwoven.
Mhm.
COVID really pushed our digital agenda. It's something I've been pushing for over a decade. COVID did it in months. Um, so, but with it has come the opportunity and the speed to understand that we really need to manage our data better, that we need to really be careful around ethics around our data and who has access to our data, because it's never forgotten.
Yeah.
As soon as it's digital, it's never forgotten. It's always stored somewhere. So we really need to be careful who has access to our data. AI, I think I've been working with AI for over a decade. I think we're now at the stage where anyone can access AI and start to use it for benefit or for negativity. So again, its processing power is just absolutely awesome. We can process and it can understand and it can feed back in summary so quickly information that you've got to be careful what it's got access to.
Yeah.
And I think the key thing and the one thing that's missing from that triangle, and really call it a rectangle or a square, is security. I think all three are underpinned by the foundation of security. And I mean that not just in the form of cybersecurity, I'm talking about total security. You've really got to think about security and ethics and compliance. I mean, I know for some people that's a boring kind of conversation, but I think if we don't fundamentally understand all three of those, then we're not going to get the benefits out of being digital and data and leveraging AI. Hopefully, something that answers your question.
Yeah. I I think it does, and I think you've opened a can of worms there. Oh,
Yeah.
a can of worms that we all knew was there, just lurking under the rock, but
Yes.
one I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll be peering into quite a lot as we reflect on. I think we don't I think we don't only just reflect on the technology, mention
Yeah.
AI there, but we reflect on the humanity as
Yes.
well and what we are, what we bring in the face of machine systems that are able to do some of the stuff that we once thought was the reserve of humanity, machines
Yeah.
being able to do similar, the same, I don't know, different conversation for another day.
For
But
another
thank
day.
you very much for your response. And passing the question forward, if you could pose one question to our next guest on the show, whoever that may be, what would that question be? And again, it can be as serious, as philosophical, or as frivolous as you like.
What is your driver for doing the role that you do? And how do you see your role benefiting your company, but also the wider public?
We're landing on the purpose question here again, aren't we? Very good.
Yeah.
Mat, it's been a delight to speak to you on the show. And well, the good news for me and a number of other lucky people as well is that we'll be speaking again in a few weeks' time at
We
the
will.
CIOX UK event in London on the 1st of October. And you're going to be on a panel that I think I might even be moderating, where we're going to be having more conversation about AI in the enterprise, sifting out all of the buzzwords, trying to land on the value, understand where we're at, where we want to get to, and as you alluded to there, maybe some of the places that we need to step over or understand in order for us to move forward. I'm really looking forward to that conversation. But for now, Mat Mallett, CDIO at the CII, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to speaking to you again.
And you again. See you later, David. Thank you.